Here, the big game is just days away, and SportsGrid is live from New Orleans all week long, bringing you the latest news, insights, and analysis from the biggest names in the game. And on game day, we've got you covered all day long, with expert picks, live odds, and everything you need to make the most out of the biggest game of the year. Don't miss a second, and it's all happening only on SportsGrid.
Even the great Nick Saban had to put his team together to do it his way. We know Coach Ryan's coming in to come run the offense, who was his right-hand man, a good friend of his at UW. And, now he's coming in. Everything is going the way we want this thing to be. Coach DeBoer is a great recruiter. He's a great father of players. He's a great leader of men. He's going to do great.
Only on SportsGrid.
This is the greatest show ever. It's funny, and you know what I like? You have balls. I mean, the stuff you do on that show, you are half crazy.
I feel like a good sense of humor, and I like to show it off. And this kind of originally started where people were the hot dog eating challenge was something that I always wanted to do, and every 4th of July, and I was like, I could eat a ton of hot dogs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Hello and welcome to a Thursday live right here on the early line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination to consume everything all across the grid. He is Joe Ranieri. I'm Ben Stevens. We are here together for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Check the countdown. Just 3 days away from Super Bowl Sunday. In Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. Plenty of coverage from the Big Easy on Radio Row coming your way over these 3 hours here on TEL. We'll continue to break down the game in every single perspective possible live right here on the early line. But it is also NBA trade deadline day, the official deadline, 3 p.m. Eastern this afternoon, just under 7 hours away. But, Joe, it was a flurry of blockbuster moves, continuing maybe the most chaotic and dramatic NBA trade deadline week we have seen in recent memory. A ton of moves late last night and in the overnight hours to recap and react for everybody here on this Thursday on the early line.
Yeah, I mean, the NBA taking full advantage of the downtime here with the NFL pre-Sunday. And boy, oh boy, those headlines were coming in quick last night, Ben, trying to keep up with them. And some of them are a bit head-scratching.
Yes, some of them are. Some of them expected, despite long droughts of playing time for Jimmy Butler, the disgruntled star in Miami, who did not really play the last month and a half for the Heat, basically a paid vacation as he was suspended from Miami, is finally moved yesterday. A blockbuster deal. Jimmy Butler is sent to the Golden State Warriors to team up with Stephen Curry and Draymond Green by the Bay. This will be the 5th team in Jimmy Butler's NBA career at the age of 35 years old. And it's not just the trade that involved 5 teams in total. It is also the extension. Butler inks a 2-year, $121 million extension with the Warriors as well. A monumental move, a seismic shift in the Western Conference as Golden State adds Jimmy Butler.
Listen, good get by the Golden State Warriors, who aren't getting any younger. I still have absolutely no idea what the Miami Heat were doing here. I have no idea what took them so long to put something together, because in essence, they got a player that is not even remotely close to Jimmy Butler in Wiggins, plus a draft pick that is probably not going to matter a whole lot. We're talking about maybe 15, 16, 17, somewhere in that ballpark there. And we're talking all of that for Jimmy Butler? I don't get it, Ben. Head scratching, but kudos to Golden State. They now have a secondary scorer with more playoff experience than anybody. So this could mean good things for the Golden State Warriors.
5 teams involved going back to South Beach, Andrew Wiggins and that 2031 protected first-round pick. But guys leaving like Kyle Anderson, he'll make his way to other areas. The Raptors involved, the Pistons involved. Of course, the Utah Jazz playing facilitator Dennis Schroeder will make his way to Salt Lake. A lot involved in this deal. For Golden State, 25-25 this year. If the season ended today, the Dubs would be on the outside looking in at the Western Conference play-in tournament. Are they a bona fide contender? The odds makers still have some doubts. 25-1, the price on the Warriors. How about the Los Angeles Lakers? We knew after the blockbuster deal late on Saturday night or early Sunday morning to acquire Luka Doncic, they would need to reinforce the front court. They do that yesterday, trading for Mark Williams from Charlotte in his 3rd year out of Duke, 15th overall pick back in 2022. Williams makes his way to Los Angeles. In return, the Lakers trade their first-round pick this year in Dalton Knecht and a couple of others back to the Queen City. But the Lakers add their versatile and athletic big man in Mark Williams.
Yeah, but they paid a price for it, though. Like you had said, I mean, Connect, Cam Reddish, swapping first-round picks in 2030. They also have an unprotected first-round pick in the year after. It fills the need now. It'll be interesting to see where all of this goes, because what teams like the Lakers have just done is it's kind of win at all costs now here, and salary cap be damned. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here with this Lakers team. They did get their center though, but boy, did they give up a lot to go get him.
It was a priority to make sure they could have somebody be their center, and Mark Williams is that. The 23-year-old has played fewer than 90 games in his NBA career. He has been in the league for 3 years. That is the downside. That is the pause, because when he is out there this season, about 20 games for the Charlotte Hornets, or at least started 20 games, averaging 15.6 points per game and 9.6 boards. Brandon Ingram, who has not played since early December for New Orleans, given a significant ankle injury, also on the move. B.I. is headed to Toronto. The Pels making some changes. The Raptors trying to build around Scotty Barnes and fill out the rest of the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Ingram, 27 years old still, Ben, which is kind of crazy when you think about it here. Was just not reliable enough. They were supposed to build Zion, and Ingram were supposed to be the foundation here, and then they would surround those two guys with some other players, and they did a good job with that when you consider what they've set up with C.J. McCollum and Trey Murphy and others. But unfortunately, he couldn't be relied upon. He was worse than Zion. You can't have a 1-2 punch that's never healthy enough to play, Ben, and that's kind of what happened. So he was due for a contract extension. Makes sense that they moved on from him, and of course, not Zion at this point.
7 straight losses for the Pels right now, 12-39, worst record in the Western Conference. Not just moves made in the association last night. The hot stove in Major League Baseball, the polar bear, Pete Alonso, is returning to the New York Mets, signing a 2-year, $54 million deal to remain in Queens.
Yeah, well, I mean, kudos to the Mets, kudos to Pete Alonso. Didn't get a long-term deal, but still got a nice payday. And, even Pete Alonso apparently wants to be a part of the Juan Soto era here, at least to start with. So kudos to the Mets for getting it done. And Pete Alonso, well, once a Met, always a Met, I guess.
Big off season up in Queens. Everybody's still looking up at the LA Dodgers, of course, around MLB. How about some actual NBA games last night? 11-game slate on a Wednesday. De'Aaron Fox traded on Sunday evening, making his San Antonio debut and doing so very well. The Spurs hold off the Hawks 126-125 on the road in Atlanta. De'Aaron Fox, 24 points, 13 dimes in his first game as a Spur.
Yeah, I think we're getting a lot of overs from this point on, Ben. I really do.
I would agree with you, Joe Ranieri. I would agree. Big game yesterday in Atlanta. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander continues to go over his points prop. A 50-point performance against the shorthanded Suns. His third 50-piece in the last 7 games for OKC. And let's round it out with some college basketball. Top 15 tilt in Knoxville. 4th-ranked Tennessee uses a huge second half, scoring nearly 60 points to outlast Missouri 85-81. The Tigers do cover as a 9.5-point road dog. More on the early line next.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It is NBA trade deadline day, 3 p.m. Eastern time, that official deadline around the association. Oftentimes, it feels like in the NBA, the off-court drama, whether free agency or deadline deals, can outweigh the actual action on the hardwood. That was certainly the case yesterday on the eve of deadline day, especially at night. in the overnight hours. It had been brewing for a long time, basically the last 6-7 weeks in South Florida. Jimmy Butler, unhappy with Miami, demanding a trade, sitting out, missing flights, suspended basically for the last month and a half in Miami, is finally on the move. Jimmy Butler traded last night to the Golden State Warriors, and not just traded, but signing a new extension with the Dubs, a 2-year, $121 million deal. A 5-team trade in essence. The Utah Jazz, helping play facilitator again, headed back to South Beach. That would be Andrew Wiggins and a first-round pick. So that was the Heat's haul in this deal. But finally, after a long and dramatic battle, Jimmy Butler has made his way out. He heads to Golden State.
Yeah, and it's listen, good news for Golden State, who, let's face it, the whole Schroeder debacle here, not working out all that well. He has been terrible and is not a very good fit for what the Golden State Warriors like to do as a team offensively. Jimmy Butler is. He's a shot creator that they can rely upon more so than Andrew Wiggins was. And Jimmy Butler's ability to be able to get to the free throw line cannot also be discounted for Golden State. They don't do that an awful lot either. So I do think it's a great win for Golden State now. And maybe the best part about this for Golden State, Ben, is they didn't have to give up any of their young players. They didn't have to go deep here. It cost them really Wiggins, who is half the player that Jimmy Butler is on every statistical front. Let's be realistic. Doesn't have the same kind of presence on the court that Jimmy Butler is in crunch time. And who did they have to give up in order to do it? A couple of draft picks? I mean, they still have all their young pieces on the team. That's a huge win for the Golden State Warriors.
Guys like Braden Podjemski, guys like Trace Jackson-Davis, they remain by the Bay. The intensity in that, Kuminga's still there, of course, as well. The intensity in that organization, now with Jimmy Butler pairing up with Draymond Green, it is ratcheted up a level, there is no doubt. However, despite the big deal for Jimmy Butler, and despite this big blockbuster trade, we expected Jimmy to be on the move at some point during this deadline week. Phoenix was a front runner. There were some teams that were a little bit under the radar. Could they make a move for Jimmy Butler? As our wonderful graphics department has displayed, we are here to remind you he is headed to San Francisco to join the Golden State Warriors with the Dubs logo in the background of every one of those photos. Jimmy Butler, though, at this stage of his career, 14th NBA season after being in Miami since 2019. Spent the previous 6 years, including this season, with the Heat. He could still play at an all-star level. We understand that, but he has not been an all-star since 2021-22. Jimmy Butler's stats this year, when he has actually been on the floor, averaging only 17 points per game. That would be the least, Joe, in his NBA career since his third season in the league. That was way back in Chicago. In your estimation, we'll look at the odds in just a moment, does the addition of Jimmy Butler actually make the Warriors a true conference contender out west?
Well, I mean, they currently sit, 10th now in the standings there. And listen, this move was their best chance at making any noise whatsoever in the playoffs and a playoff push here. This is exactly the kind of move they needed to make. It didn't cost them an arm and a leg. They've coordinated the salary now and the contract to Jimmy Butler, so they're not going to get crushed down the road. It's a win-win for Golden State. You know, Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry in crunch time in a winner-take-all kind of situation there in a short series. Yeah, I'd be willing to roll the dice with those two.
So let's look at Golden State's optimism now and see where the odds evaluate the Dubs. A 25 to 1 number to win the Western Conference crown, slashed in half from where their price was on Sunday afternoon after all the craziness in the blockbuster deal between Luka Doncic and the Lakers, Anthony Davis and the Mavericks, of course. So slashed in half, that's good. 25-1, though, still ninth best price, Joe, to win the Western Conference. And as you alluded to, they currently sit 11th based on a couple of tiebreakers. If the season ended today at 25-25 overall, Golden State would be on the outside looking in at the play-in tournament in the Western Conference. But now that price for Golden State to make the postseason, plus 136. That is key for the Dubs. Can they make a run to get into the play-in tournament? We would assume. But if they're seed level 7 through 10, they'll need at least one, if not multiple wins, to actually be a playoff team in the Western Conference. I would say, with the addition of Jimmy Butler, we think that is likely. However, the Warriors have some ground to make up. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah, well, they definitely do. And, of course, you got to hope that Jimmy Butler can play in enough of these games to make a big impact here. But they got some ground to make up here, but they certainly had the experience and the quality of players to be able to make a run at getting in there. All you got to do is get in it, right, Ben? Once you're in it, anything can happen, and that's kind of what their focus is going to be moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely so for the Warriors. Jimmy Butler, Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, all together by the Bay. The Warriors were very interested in making a seismic deal. They get that in the addition of Jimmy Butler. Yesterday at this time, we thought that superstar headed to San Francisco might be Kevin Durant. Sources yesterday telling all of the NBA insiders that KD was not interested in a potential Warriors reunion. He remains in Phoenix for now, but it still is deadline day. The other moves around the association next.
Who we pulling for? Who we looking to win this game?
I picked Buffalo over Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, and I was wrong. I'm picking Philly. Philly has the better roster, but Kansas City just knows how to win, especially one-score games. But I think Saquon, like he's been the difference all year, Kansas City has to prove to me they can stop him.
Absolutely.
They can stop him, stop that O-line, and not have Jalen have to throw it 40 times.
Only on SportsGrid.
This is the greatest show ever. It's funny, and you know what I like? You have balls. I mean, the stuff you do on that show, you are half crazy.
You know, I feel like a good sense of humor, and I like to show it off. And this kind of originally started where people were the hot dog eating challenge was something that I always wanted to do, and every 4th of July, and I was like, I could eat a ton of hot dogs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's finally here. The big game is just days away, and SportsGrid is live from New Orleans all week long, bringing you the latest news, insights, and analysis from the biggest names in the game. And on game day, we've got you covered all day long with expert picks, live odds, and everything you need to make the most out of the biggest game of the year. Don't miss a second, and it's all happening only on SportsGrid.
Plenty of moves made yesterday on the eve of deadline day in the NBA, 3 p.m. Eastern time, a little bit shy of 7 hours away. The official trade deadline around the association. Of course, after the acquisition of Luka Doncic, but also trading away Anthony Davis. The Lakers pretty much discussed in Luka's introductory presser they would make one more move targeting a big man somewhere in this trade deadline week. They go out there and get it. From Charlotte, third-year pro, Mark Williams, who was a first-round pick back in 2022, 15th overall, out of Duke. Joe, as you alluded to, the Lakers gave up a ton. They trade away this year's first-round selection, who was having an outstanding rookie season in Dalton Connect, a 2031 first-round pick, and Cam Reddish back to Charlotte. But we knew the priority for LA was a big man, a versatile, athletic big man. And they get that in Mark Williams. Future very bright in Los Angeles. I would say the only downside to Williams, at least at this stage of his 3-year NBA career, he hasn't truly been all that healthy. Only 85 games played over the span of his first 3 years in the league, just 23 this season as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they had to make the move. You go out, you get a 7'2" center, young, but you did have to give up another, potential superstar there in Dalton Connect, who has certainly shown flashes this year, Ben, of what he can be a superstar in this league. Cam Reddish and the draft picks in a couple of years as well, but he's exactly the kind of the lob catching, rim protecting center that Doncic has absolutely loved in Dallas. Yeah. He'll love him here, provided, like you had said, though, they're going to stay healthy enough in order to be able to make a difference. If they are, that's a good fit for the Lakers. You got to give them credit. They are making a push here to try and do everything they can this year and maybe give LeBron an opportunity to ride off into the sunset with another championship over the next couple of seasons.
It also dropped their price, that being the Lakers, to win the Western Conference by $1, plus $750. Prototypically, Mark Williams can provide exactly what Luka, LeBron, and the Lakers could hope for in a dream big. Again, availability, the best ability, when he has been out there for 23 games this season, averaging better than 15.5 points per game, 9.6 boards, basically a 16-10 double-double on 59% shooting from the field, so he is efficient, but he needs to be out there, of course, for Mark Williams. Many Duke connections as well. You could remind Mark Williams of guys like Derek Lively that Luka Doncic excelled in playing with in Dallas, and of course, J.J. Redick, head coach of the Lakers, former Duke Blue Devil, apparently has a very personal relationship with Mark Williams, described as mentor and mentee, dating back to some familiarity together in Durham. So could be a great fit for the Lakers. An aggressive move for the Lakers. Probably a big name at the big man spot than many considered was available during this trade deadline week. Really good move for L.A. All the chips in this year and certainly beyond with Luka Doncic, who we anticipate, by the way, to make his Lakers debut on Saturday against Indiana. Doncic has not played since Christmas Day. More moves yesterday around the association. Brandon Ingram, who has not played since early December, is now a Toronto Raptor. The New Orleans Pelicans making this move, sending BI up to the Great White North. The Raptors interested in building around the promising young superstar in Scotty Barnes. They add Brandon Ingram, who was an all-star back in 2020, has certainly showed some offensive flashes throughout his NBA career. Joe, as you alluded to, only 27 years old, Brandon Ingram, but has only played in 18 games this year, suffered a significant ankle injury in early December.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, the Pelicans also get what? Bruce Brown, former six-man, guy off the bench, champion there with Denver, Kelly Olynyk, a first-round pick, a second-round pick. I mean, listen, they got the Pelicans got a lot more than the Miami Heat did for a potential superstar, didn't they? But Ingram's got to stay healthy. Otherwise, what good does this do for you, Toronto?
When Brandon Ingram was traded to New Orleans in 2019 from the Lakers, the idea of Lonzo Ball, who was also a part of that package, Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson was probably pretty enticing in the Big Easy. They are 12-39 this year, the worst record in the Western Conference. That is some actual games around an 11-game slate in the association last night. Next.
Best dressed guy, let me tell you, next to me in terms of Radio Row. I want to get your thoughts quickly on the game, Philly and KC. How do you see it playing out?
You know, obviously you got Patrick Mahomes, who just finds a way to win. Then you got on the other side of the table an alien and, Barkley. I mean, he's had an incredible year.
Right.
I think whoever has the balls last is going to win the football game.
Only on SportsGrid.
I have no idea how to categorize what Mavericks GM Nico Harrison pulled off, Joe. All I know is that he shipped off Luka Doncic without telling Luka about it.
If you thought conditioning was a problem for Luka, wait until you get a load of Anthony Davis tripping over air and then missing 40 games because he's like Glass Joe.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
What a busy week it has been in the NBA. Of course, today is NBA trade deadline day. We have already seen blockbuster deal after blockbuster deal after blockbuster deal, just to tidy up a little bit of the logistics. Another deal yesterday, Jonas Valanciunas on his way from D.C., now back to Sacramento. Jonas Valanciunas, that is now heading to the Kings. The Kings had already been involved in a blockbuster deal over the weekend, sending De'Aaron Fox to San Antonio. In return, they get a guy in Zach LaVine and a bunch of picks. Well, De'Aaron Fox yesterday in the 11-game slate we had on a Wednesday evening in the association made his debut for San Antonio on the road in Atlanta. The Spurs, booked as a 4.5-point favorite, do not cover, but hold on to win in the ATL against the Hawks, 126-125, in a really solid debut for De'Aaron Fox in the victory for San Antonio. 24 points, 13 dimes for Fox in his Spurs debut. They get a victory, even by just a single point, holding off a flurry in the second half from the Hawks for the win in Atlanta.
Yeah, no, good game. A lot of fun for both there, but both teams there. Atlanta, by the way, also was reported yesterday, Ben, hot on the tail of Brandon Ingram. It really came down to Atlanta was the other team that was trying to get a deal done, but unfortunately that did not work out. That would have been an interesting fit as well. But in the meantime, once again, we see Atlanta's got no shortage of being able to run up and down the court and score points.
Yep.
Once again, defensively, but Wembayama with a couple of late free throws with almost no time left is what wins it for the Spurs in what should be a very fun team to watch moving forward, man.
The Spurs had an 18-point lead at the break. The Hawks scored 43 points in the third quarter to make this a game in the fourth and final. Joe, total yesterday for this game was 243. Still pushes to the over with 251 points combined. Atlanta is one of 4 teams around the NBA that has played in at least 30 games this year to the over, make it game 31 to the over last night for the Hawks. It was also interesting just to see San Antonio booked as a favorite for only the 16th time this year in their 48 total games, now 8-8 against the spread. And for the Hawks, yeah, a loss last night. Not much to write home about this year in the A, but they are 19-13 against the spread as an underdog. The prior 2 years in the association, Hawks, one of the worst cover teams in the NBA, 34-47-1 ATS in the last 2 seasons before this campaign as an underdog covering numbers. Much better at doing so this season. So many moves that we have seen this week, and a lot really kind of focusing on the Western Conference. The Lakers adding Luka Doncic and Mark Williams. The Mavericks reshifting their entire roster, believing they are still win now. Golden State, are the Warriors truly a contender with the addition of Jimmy Butler? Frankly, everybody's still looking up at the Oklahoma City Thunder, who get to the 40-win benchmark in a blowout victory last night at home against the Phoenix Suns. You see it there, 140-109. In the story is the MVP frontrunner once again in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. 50-point performance as the Thunder easily cover as a 13-point home favorite. Total of 229 goes over. And Joe, for SGA, his third time scoring 50 in the last 7 games, making some NBA history as Kevin Durant had to watch from the bench, and we all thought maybe KD wouldn't even be on the bench for Phoenix yesterday.
Yeah, there were still a lot of questions heading in, which is what makes this week so treacherous, trying to bet it leading up to the trade deadline, because they're really, outside of a handful of teams, man, there were a lot of question marks and rosters and guys looking around the locker room trying to figure out if they're still going to be there. And we saw those kinds of results even last night, Aaron, some of those games, especially with the Oklahoma City Thunder handling their business with a Suns team that you don't think those guys heard all of that, Ben? Not knowing whether or not Durant was going to be there, who knows, Beal, that kind of stuff rips locker rooms apart, Ben. And now that maybe things have settled down a little bit here, if nothing else crazy happens, then we can start looking at teams like the Suns and see if there's any reason why we should look to back them.
Yeah, and you know what, Joe? When you look at Phoenix this year, now 17-32-1 against the spread. The Suns are the worst cover team in the NBA, 34.7% cover percentage. Phoenix is the only team not even covering in at least 35% of games this year. The Suns in a precarious position right now, holding on to the 10 spot, but they have dropped 3 in a row. They are 25-25. We'll see if Phoenix does anything today ahead of the deadline at 3 p.m. Eastern time. 2 teams in the association have now won at least 40 games. OKC last night. The Thunder, by the way, also 29-16-3 against the spread as the favored side this year. The Cavs win game number 41. Darius Garland, a buzzer beater 3 from the logo at half court. The Cavs survive in the Motor City against the Pistons. Detroit does cover as a 6-point home underdog. Anthony Edwards, big night for the T-Wolves, scoring 49 points as Minnesota routs Chicago by 19. Some of the other action we saw in the NBA yesterday.
What'd we say about Mobley bounce back? Exactly what we were looking for, because he was absolutely atrocious the night prior there in that big game against Boston. Not so much last night. 30 points, 9 boards, 7 assists there, Ben. He ended up being a big reason as to why the Cavs were so competitive in that game. But once again, the Cavs get out to a good start, much better than they did against Boston. But boy, they held on for dear life in that second half, and Garland saved them. But second of a back-to-back, it wasn't a great spot for the Cavs. But you thought they would come out hotter than they did against the Celtics with just those 15 points in the first quarter the other night.
2 nights ago for Philadelphia, big home victory over the Mavericks. It saw Joel Embiid return for the first time in over a month, and he posted a triple-double. Of course, JoJo's not going to play the second leg of a back-to-back. So in the city of brotherly love last night, the Heat win 108-101 as a very slight underdog. Philly is now 20-30. There's not a ton of time for the Sixers to make a run even to a postseason position around the Eastern Conference. Tyler Hero scored 30 points to lead Miami. And, Joe, it was funny. There was a video last night of a fan basically sitting behind Miami's bench in Philadelphia telling them about the Jimmy Butler trade to Tyler Hero and Kevin Love. They now know they have a new teammate in Andrew Wiggins and maybe some more draft capital in the future. Let's go from the NBA to our top 15 tilt last night in Knoxville, Tennessee. 4th-ranked Tennessee, 15th-ranked Missouri. Mizzou off to a great start, a lead at the break, but Tennessee answers with 57 points in the second half to rally from behind to beat Mizzou 85-81. Now, the Tigers do cover as a 9.5-point road underdog. They are 8-1 against the spread in SEC play. But Tennessee, after dropping 3 of 4, entering Saturday's game against Florida, won that game by 20, rallied in the second 20 minutes last night to hold off Missouri.
Yeah, I mean, what a schedule Mizzou has had, by the way. Yeah. Unbelievable. And they are still coming out firing. A very interesting team here. But the story last night was return of Ziegler and Milicic, right? So both of those guys missed the previous game against Florida. But boy, oh boy, did they show up in a big way last night when they needed them.
You are always going to need your point guard. And Zakai Ziegler did exactly that. Igor Milicic, 21 points and 10 boards as well. More college basketball recaps and some Super Bowl talk next.
It's finally here. The big game is just days away, and SportsGrid is live from New Orleans all week long, bringing you the latest news, insights, and analysis from the biggest names in the game. And on game day, we've got you covered all day long with expert picks, live odds, and everything you need to make the most out of the biggest game of the year. Don't miss a second, and it's all happening only on SportsGrid.
Best dressed guy, let me tell you, next to me in terms of Radio Row. I want to get your thoughts quickly on the game, Philly and KC. How do you see it playing out?
You know, obviously you got Patrick Mahomes, who just finds a way to win. Then you got on the other side of the table an alien, and Barkley. I mean, he's had an incredible year.
Right.
I think whoever has the balls last is going to win the football game.
Only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
A top 15 tilt in Knoxville. The Volunteers use a huge second half to edge out Missouri, but keep an eye on those Tigers in terms of covering numbers at SEC play. Mizzou now 8-1 against the spread, 4-1 ATS as an underdog within conference action. Plenty other notable college basketball games from a Wednesday around the nation as well. It's time. It's time, folks, up there in Central New York. I'm looking at you, John Wildhack. We need to return the Syracuse men's basketball program to national prominence before we become an afterthought of yesteryear. Because yesterday, in front of more than 23,000 inside the JMA Dome, Syracuse got beat bad by Duke. The Blue Devils, one of the best teams in the country. There is no denying that. Now make it 15 consecutive victories for the Blue Devils. That's the nation's longest win streak. They are perfect 12-0 in the ACC, but a 29-point win for the Dukies on the road against SU. The Blue Devils easily cover as a 17.5-point favorite. They are 8-4 against the spread. That being the Blue Devils in ACC play. They have won 10 of 12 games by double digits. The average margin of victory now near 21 points per game in ACC action. But it's clear that Red Autry, a legend within the Syracuse program, had the very unenviable task of taking over for the legend that is Syracuse basketball in Jim Boeheim. It's not working out. He should not see year number 3.
Ben, you're echoing a lot of what we're hearing from Syracuse fans and alumni. But, I mean, the reality is, listen, the writing was on the wall even towards the end of Boeheim. And you'd be one of the first guys that said maybe he stayed a couple of years too long here. But with NIL and the landscape here, it's a different ballgame. But, you know, that university should have absolutely no excuse for not being able to come up with enough money to be able to get some of the better talent across the country. But coaching is everything and recruiting is everything still in college basketball. And it doesn't appear that the Orange are winning on that front. And that's translating into mediocre basketball for a program that for years and decades, Ben, has been anything but.
Should be a standard bearer in the sport. But kids don't really remember 1985 and the old Big East. Heck, they might not even remember 2016, my senior year, in a Final Four run for Syracuse, doing a lot in the tournament that was not sustained really throughout the entirety of seasons. It was very difficult to make a change for the Orange, right, to go from Jim Boeheim to Red Autry. They bring a guy that was an assistant under Boeheim for nearly a decade and a half. To try to keep some of that congruency, you need to open up the search now, bring in a big name, restore Syracuse basketball back to its national relevancy. How about a huge game inside the rack? Rutgers using the home floor advantage in each of its 2 outstanding freshmen. Dylan Harper returning yesterday to lead Rutgers alongside Ace Bailey as the Scarlet Knights win outright as a 7.5-point home dog over number 23 Illinois, 82-73. Joe, the Illini off to a great start in Big Ten play. Now just an even 500 ball club in conference action, 6-6 straight up.
Yeah, we mentioned it yesterday here, Ben, when we talked about this game, and I said, I like Rutgers, but I like Rutgers even better if Dylan Harper is playing because he had missed the last couple of games. And you know, yesterday morning, there was still a lot of reports that he wasn't returning here either. Had the, he was in that walking boot the last game, and we're going, yeesh. But Illinois, to me, is we know Rutgers, when those two guys are on the court, when Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper are on the court, they can beat anybody in the country, Ben. The bigger story to me is just how Illinois has fallen off a cliff here. They can't hit water if they fell out of a boat right now. And Underwood and company they better figure some things out here, Ben, because Illinois is becoming more and more irrelevant as the day goes on here. This was not an easy win, of course, on the road, but this is yet another game in which when they need to make shots, they're not falling for Illinois right now.
My apologies to the Illini. 7-6 is the record right now for Illinois in the Big Ten, but they have dropped 5 of their last 8. You know who's not dropping any games? That's Creighton. The Blue Jays have now won 8 straight. They have covered in all 8 of those victories, including last night as a 3.5-point road underdog in Providence, 3.5-point road favorite in Providence, Rhode Island. So 8 straight wins, 9 consecutive covers for CU. St. John's might be the story in the Big East, but the Jays now 10-2. Keep an eye on Greg McDermott, Ryan Kalkbrenner, and the Creighton Blue Jays.
And what a first half that game was, Ben. It was 40-39 at the break. Providence left it all out on the court, man. And you love to see that. But unfortunately, talent wins out, and Creighton just has too much of it. And they dropped another 40-piece in the second half. And that was kind of all she wrote. Providence just doesn't have the same quality of players that Creighton does. But it was a heck of a game to watch. Very entertaining until, of course, Kalkbrenner in the second half said, yeah, I'm calling game. Enough is enough, and just absolutely destroyed Providence.
One of the best players in college basketball, Ryan Kalkbrenner, 35 points, 12 boards last night. Creighton has won 8 in a row. They have covered in 9 straight. Arkansas, no step back last night, 78-70, the victory for the Hogs on the road in Austin. Maybe we thought a letdown after the big return to Rupp for John Calipari on Saturday evening. Maybe it's actually inspired the Razorbacks. They win outright over Texas as a 6.5-point road dog.
That was the, that was the question, Ben. Would we get are we believing in Arkansas with what they did against Kentucky? Could they have actually figured something out? And the answer was yes. And what they figured out is it's time to use Johnell Davis a lot more often if you're Arkansas. He dropped 24, the former FAU star. They made 11 of 13 from the free throw line in the final 60 seconds. That's how you win college basketball games.
A huge win for Cal and Arkansas. Auburn remains the national championship favorites at plus 370. We head to the Big East next.
Who we pulling for? Who we looking to win this game?
I picked Buffalo over Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, and I was wrong. I'm picking Philly. Philly has the better roster, but Kansas City just knows how to win, especially one-score games. But I think Saquon, like he's been the difference all year, Kansas City has to prove to me they can stop him.
Absolutely.
They can stop him, stop that O-line, and not have Jalen have to throw it 40 times.
Only on SportsGrid.
This is the greatest show ever. It's funny, and you know what I like? You have balls. I mean, the stuff you do on that show, you are half crazy.
You know, I feel like a good sense of humor, and I like to show it off. And this kind of originally started where people were the hot dog eating challenge was something that I always wanted to do every 4th of July, and I was like, I could eat a ton of hot dogs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's finally here. The big game is just days away, and SportsGrid is live from New Orleans all week long, bringing you the latest news, insights, and analysis from the biggest names in the game. And on game day, we've got you covered all day long with expert picks, live odds, and everything you need to make the most out of the biggest game of the year. Don't miss a second, and it's all happening only on SportsGrid.
We round out this opening hour on a Thursday on the early line, just 3 days out now from Super Bowl 59 on Sunday by heading to New Orleans. Some are calling what you are going to see next from Radio Row yesterday the best and biggest day of Joe Lisi's life. He sits down with Sean Stellato, of course, the agent of Tommy DeVito, who became a star in his own right. A couple of good Italians talking shop in New Orleans. That's where we go right now.
Live from Radio Row, SportsGrid's coverage of Super Bowl 59. Joe Lisi joined by superstar agent Sean Stellato. Sean, just give me your thoughts about the atmosphere here in New Orleans.
It's intoxicating. You know, this is the mecca of America's favorite pastime.
Right.
Excited to be down here.
Yeah, best dressed guy, let me tell you, next to me in terms of Radio Row. I want to get your thoughts quickly on the game, Philly and KC. How do you see it playing out?
You know, obviously you got Patrick Mahomes, who just finds a way to win. Then you got on the other side of the table an alien and, Barkley. I mean, he's had an incredible year.
Right.
I think whoever has the balls last is going to win the football game. But I think with Barkley, the chip on the shoulder would happen with the Giants, and then being benched sat out that last game, going out to really put an exclamation point on the greatest running back performance in the history of the NFL. Got to be doing confetti angels to have that title,
Yeah,
I think.
Definitely, and we'll see how that game plays out. I like Philadelphia as well. You were a star at Marist, right? Wide receiver. What made you get into becoming an agent after your playing days?
You know, I had a couple agents I hired and fired, and I saw the movie Jerry Maguire, and if I honestly, very transparently, could still be playing the game, I would be. So I said, what's the closest that I can get? It's playing football. It's representing players, and I've been blessed to represent some fine, high-character young men, and it's been a fun ride. I live my bliss every day, and being the bridge to the NFL for these guys, it's pretty refreshing.
Now, I have to ask you, because we all saw you in terms of that primetime matchup on MetLife, right? Tommy DeVito, I always said Danny, starting for the New York Giants, right? You're on the sidelines, people recognizing you. What did that do for you? I mean, in terms of, making you a household name at that particular time.
It was almost like America's Got Talent, the Golden Buzzer. I mean, incredible. But it was years and years of grit and resiliency and tenacity and just pounding the pavement for my guys, coming to the center light.
Right.
And being able to spearhead that and segue that for other opportunities from other guys, it's been very, very humbling, gratifying. I love what I do. I am so passionate at what I do. And, everything that happened in New York on Monday Night Football, where I was engaged 19 years to the day.
Wow,
to my wife.
That's incredible. Now, I have to be honest with you. When I watch that and I'm listening to the Manning cast and everything, they're calling out the look and everything else, and you're rocking it. I mean, the Italians know how to dress, right? That's the one thing. Did that bother you at all?
You know what? Some of the statements he made, I thought was like whatever. It was,
it bothered me. Let me just tell you that.
Know, it did.
Because they wouldn't do it to anybody else, right?
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. And obviously, not knowing much about me, that I'm a girl dad of 4 daughters, and I've been grinding for all those years. It was almost like making statements without even doing any due diligence to really see the track record and how I pride myself on my craft.
Right.
No different
absolutely.
than both those guys, how they prepare and. They were born into a situation where they've made the most out of it.
Right, absolutely. And let me just say this as well. I've seen a majority of your clients, great guys. You represent them great. You're in philanthropy as well, a lot of charity work. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, my daughter suffers from juvenile arthritis, my Gianna, and we decided to write a children's book series called Football Magic, and it's a tutorial for kids that have autoimmune diseases. Coach Belichick, Sean Payton have endorsed the series. When I played arena ball down in Memphis, I did some work with St. Jude's. I just feel like we get to live our bliss every single day as a player or as an agent, and it's only proper to do more to help those that need it, and they're stars,
right?
And that's important to me.
Let me ask you, for younger players that maybe want to get into the industry of being a sports agent? What's the best piece of advice you can give them?
Yeah, really know that you want to do it. Because one thing about you watch movies, like, I'd love to be an actor, but then you got to realize what you got to do to get to that point. So it's possible. It's a very rewarding job, but it's a very humbling job. And you got to decide if you want to be around away from your family, if you want to have a family, or if you want to have, and if not, you got to really create your own way. No one gave me $1 million and said, "Hey, kid, go be a sports agent." But look at internships and finding a way to be authentic is important. But I like to say that, I'm an underdog agent and I've been able to do it. And if I can do it, they can do it. It's really, we got one life. We got one paintbrush, one piece of canvas. That's it. Yeah, so do what you love. And if you don't do it, and if you're just going to chase a paycheck, I don't know if you'll be happy at the end of the day.
And the great Sean Stellato will be back with more from New Orleans.